They said my seat was near the kitchen, closer to the staff. My mother whispered, "Be grateful you're even invited." I smiled, walked to the gift table, and replaced my $5,000 check with a single dollar. Now it matches the respect I get. My name's Olivia Ward. I'm 28 from San Diego. And that night, at my sister's wedding, I finally stopped pretending I belonged. The ballroom smelled like champagne and roses. Everyone shimmered under the chandeliers, laughing too loud, pretending too much. My chair was half hidden behind a column next to the server's path. Each time a waiter passed, the air shifted with the scent of garlic and dish soap. I tried to eat quietly, but the clinking of forks felt like a spotlight. My mother's voice carried from the next table. She should be thankful we included her name at all. If you've ever been the family embarrassment, you know that kind of whisper hurts louder than yelling. I placed my napkin down, stood up, and heard the faint scrape of my chair against the floor. For a second, every eye lifted. Then silence, like even the music paused to watch me leave. At the door, I looked back once. Amanda, my sister the bride, was laughing with Mom. Their shoulders touched. The perfect picture of loyalty, minus one daughter. Outside, the air hit different. Cold, honest. I walked past the valet, through rows of cars gleaming under string lights. My heels clicked against the pavement, echoing in rhythm with my heartbeat. Halfway to my car, I froze. Dad was standing by the far fence, holding his suit jacket, pretending to check his phone. He didn't come closer. Didn't say my name. Just looked at me the way someone does when they want to help, but fear being seen doing it. For a second, I thought of being 8 again, his hand holding mine on the first day of school. Mom crouched to button my collar, kissing my forehead. She'd whispered, "You'll always have us, no matter what." Funny how promises age faster than people. The lights from the ballroom glowed behind me, gold and distant. I unlocked my car, slid inside, and sat there with the engine off. My reflection in the mirror looked like someone halfway between hurt and free. You ever drive home knowing something just ended, but you don't know what it'll cost yet? I didn't cry. I just started the car and whispered, "Happy wedding, Amanda." The tires rolled over gravel as music from the hall faded behind me. Somewhere in that noise, I heard the faint sound of glass breaking. Or maybe that was just me, cracking quietly from the inside. When I pulled into my driveway, the porch light flickered like it couldn't decide whose side it was on. I slipped off my shoes, left them by the door, and walked barefoot across the living room. The silence there felt safer than any toast or blessing. I didn't know that walking away that night would cost me more than money. Because the next morning, my mother and sister showed up uninvited, and that's where everything truly began. The next morning, I was still half asleep when the doorbell exploded like an alarm I hadn't set. Through the peephole, my mother's floral blouse, Amanda's white coat. Both faces already tight with purpose. I opened the door an inch. "It's early," I said. Mom pushed past me. "Then wake up. You owe your sister a wedding gift." Amanda crossed her arms. "You made a scene, Liv. Now make it right." My kitchen suddenly felt too small for 3 people. Steam rose from the coffee pot. The cat darted under the couch. I tried to sound calm. "Get out, both of you." Mom laughed the way she always did before something cruel. "Oh, listen to her. Miss Independent, you think walking out last night made you a martyr? You ever realize someone's tone has been rehearsed for years?" Amanda moved toward the counter, grabbing the framed photo of us from college. "You used to be fun," she said. "What happened to you?" I stopped apologizing for existing. Her eyes rolled. The photo frame hit the counter with a soft thud. Then everything happened fast. Mom reached for my purse on the chair, I heard the buckle snap, the wallet fall, the clatter of coins. I bent to pick it up, heart pounding, but they were already at the door. "Don't bother calling," Mom said, pulling Amanda along. "We're done until you grow up." The door slammed. Silence returned like a slap. For a minute, I just stood there, staring at the empty space where they'd been. My coffee went cold. My hands shook, not from fear, just fury that still looked like love. I checked the counter. Purse open, wallet half unzipped, my debit card gone. I froze. That same metallic taste filled my mouth, the one you get right before bad news. I called the bank, 30 minutes on hold, elevator music, polite voices, and then, "Yes, ma'am, a charge just went through. $4,500 at J&M Jewelers." I pressed the phone to my ear, waiting for the world to make sense again. "That's impossible," I said. "I'm at home." "We'll start an investigation," the woman replied gently. "Do you know anyone who might have access to your card?" I almost laughed. Access? My entire family had keys to my life once. After I hung up, my phone rang again. Dad. His voice was soft, like he'd been crying but didn't want to admit it. "Olivia, you don't deserve this. You never did." For a second, I wanted to believe him, that he finally saw me. Then came the part that always ruins it. "But your mother, she's not going to change. It's best to let it go." There it was, the sentence that excused every crime she ever committed. I said quietly, "You let it go, Dad. Not me." He didn't answer, just breathed once and hung up. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the blinking light on my phone. The smell of their perfume still lingered in the air. You know that feeling when your house still looks the same but somehow doesn't feel like yours anymore? The kettle clicked off. The silence was back. And then, ping. Notification, $4,500 withdrawn. My thumb hovered over the screen. That's when I realized the wedding wasn't over. It just moved to my bank account. By noon, I was sitting in the corner chair at my local bank, the kind with fake plants and too much air conditioning. The clerk smiled politely, fingers clicking on her keyboard. "You said it was a $4,500 charge at J&M Jewelers?" "Yeah," I said, pushing my ID across the desk. "That's not mine." She printed something and turned the paper around. A single receipt, smudged with blue ink. My name scrawled across the bottom, but the loops, the tilt, the hesitation, none of it was mine. "You'll need to file a dispute," she said. "We'll review the signature." I stared at it, my fake name staring back. "Can I keep a copy?" Of course. I folded it once, slipped it into my jacket pocket, and felt the weight of betrayal measured in paper grams. You ever see your own handwriting and realize it's someone else's idea of you? Back home, I sat at my dining table with a pen and a sheet of plain paper. The same pen I used to sign rent checks, birthday cards, even the down payment for Amanda's catering company last year. How did my sister learn to steal with a smile? Maybe from the woman who raised us both. I started writing by hand. A letter to the bank confirming that the signature wasn't mine. My fingers cramped halfway through, but I kept going. Each word steadier than the last. The act of writing felt like reclaiming my name, line by line. By evening, I sealed the envelope and dropped it into the blue mailbox down the street. For once, the clank of metal closing felt final. An hour later, my phone buzzed. "Dad!" I almost didn't answer. Then I saw the attachment. A photo, blurred but clear enough. The same receipt from the jewelry store. The same forged signature. But this time, at the bottom corner, something new. In his handwriting, Your mother told me to keep this quiet. I'm sorry. For a few seconds, I just stared at it, the way you stare at headlights before remembering to move. He knew. He'd seen the lie happen, watched Amanda sign my name, and stayed silent because someone told him to. My chest tightened, not with anger, but with that heavy ache of recognizing someone's weakness too well. I called, but it went to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. What was left to say? The house was dim now. The clock ticked like it was counting proof instead of seconds. I unfolded the photo again, tracing his words with my thumb. So you knew, I whispered, and still said nothing. The air was still. The cat jumped onto the table, brushing her tail across the paper like she wanted to erase the evidence. For a moment, I wanted that too, to unsee it, to go back before every truth had a dollar amount. But truth doesn't refund. I grabbed the receipt, pinned it to the fridge with a magnet, and stood back. It looked like a crime scene labeled family. You know that silence when your phone doesn't ring because no one's brave enough to call? That's the kind that followed me to bed. Somewhere, a text from Dad sat unsent. And somewhere else, a wedding ring sparkled under fluorescent lights, paid for with my name. By Friday afternoon, the sun hit my window like it wanted to burn the evidence off my fridge. The receipt still hung there, Amanda's fake signature and Dad's shaky apology staring back at me. Then came the knock. 3 quick taps. Dan. I opened the door, surprised he even knew where I lived. He looked exhausted, tie loosened, jaw tight, eyes darting like he'd already lost an argument before starting it. Amanda told me you'd ruin her wedding, he said flatly. I didn't believe her, until now. For a moment, I just blinked. Until now? He stepped in, holding up his phone. On the screen, screenshots of texts, twisted half-truths. My name, my messages cut apart, rearranged to look venomous. I didn't defend myself. Instead, I walked to the fridge, pulled the receipt off the magnet, and handed it to him. This is what your fiancé did. With my name, with my money. He read it once, twice. His lips pressed together like he wanted to say something, but couldn't find a version that wouldn't betray someone. Your dad wrote that? Yeah, I said quietly. He knew. The silence stretched long enough for the kettle to click off behind us. Then he folded the paper and set it on the counter. I don't know who to believe anymore. That makes 2 of us. He nodded once and left, closing the door softer than I expected. The kind of soft that means final. You ever have a moment so quiet it feels like grief has its own echo? That evening, I sat by the window scrolling mindlessly when my phone started buzzing. Messages, tags, and screenshots. One line repeated, Dan called off the wedding. Apparently, he'd stood in front of both families, took off his ring, and said, This isn't the life I want to start. Part of me wanted to feel vindicated. The rest just felt empty. I called my best friend, Mia. When she picked up, I didn't even say hello. I did everything right, I said. I showed up. I tried. Mia's voice was steady, the kind that doesn't fill silence. It holds it. You didn't lose a family, Liv. You just found out who never deserved you. For the first time in days, I let myself cry. Not because I was angry, because I finally accepted I couldn't fix what broke me. She waited, then added quietly, Maybe your mom didn't lose a daughter. Maybe she just lost the kind she could still control. The line hit harder than any insult Amanda had ever thrown. Outside, the streetlights flickered on. I wiped my face, staring at the shadows crawling across the wall. The room felt lighter, but not empty. just reclaimed. I stood, grabbed my jacket, and went to the mailbox for the first time all week. Bills, flyers, and one ivory envelope, my mother's handwriting curling across the front. Inside, her words were brief, perfectly neat. We need to talk. Family should forgive. You ever notice how some people use forgiveness like a leash? I folded the letter once, twice, and placed it on the table beside my cold cup of tea. I didn't know it yet, but that letter wasn't an olive branch. It was bait. The letter sat unopened on my kitchen table all night. By morning, I'd memorized every curve of my mother's handwriting without reading a single word inside. At 9:13 a.m., my phone rang. Mom. I let it buzz twice before answering. Hello? Her tone was soft, almost rehearsed. Olivia, I've been thinking, we shouldn't let anger win. Families fight, but they also forgive. That word, forgive, landed like a weight. I didn't respond, just listened. Sometimes silence tells the truth better than words. She continued, her voice syrupy sweet. I know Amanda made mistakes. We all did. But airing private matters? That's not forgiveness, darling. That's cruelty. I walked to the window, watching the neighborhood move on with its normal day. Dogs barking, sprinklers hissing, mail truck rolling past. Everything simple. Everything that wasn't us. Then her tone changed, just slightly sharper. If you tell anyone about the money, you'll destroy this family. And there it was. The real message beneath the sermon. I switched the call to speaker. Dad needs to hear this. Olivia. But I was already dialing his number on the second phone. I merged the calls. The screen flashed conference active. Dad? I said quietly. You there? A pause, then a rough exhale. Yeah. Mom hesitated, voice flattening. This isn't necessary. Actually, I said, it is. He deserves to hear who you really are when you're not pretending for photos. For a long beat, only breathing filled the line. Hers sharp, his heavy, mine steady. Then she snapped. You think you're better than us because you write little letters and play victim online? You don't understand what families do to survive. I let her talk. Sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is let someone finish their sentence. Dad's voice cut in, low and shaky. Enough. That single word was quieter than shouting, but it cracked the script she'd been reading from for years. He didn't defend her. He didn't defend me either. Just said, I need a minute. And the click followed. A quiet, final hang-up. For a moment, none of us spoke. Then she tried to fill the space again. You'll regret this, Olivia. I already did, I said, and ended the call. The silence that followed felt strange, lighter, almost peaceful, like the first breath after holding your head underwater too long. You ever realize someone's love only worked when you were smaller? I stood there with both phones in my hands, feeling the weight of what didn't need to be said anymore. The truth wasn't a secret weapon. It was a mirror, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid to look into it. Outside, the mail truck came back down the street. The driver waved, unaware he was passing a house where a whole bloodline just cracked in half. I set my phone on the counter and whispered to no one, You taught me to tell the truth. Then louder, steadier. I'm keeping that lesson. By Monday afternoon, I thought the storm had passed. No more calls, no messages. Just quiet, the kind that makes you wonder if peace is real or just the pause before another hit. Then came the knock. A woman stood at my door, holding a cardboard folder against her chest. I recognized her instantly, the wedding planner. Her name tag had said Elena the last time I saw her, the night I slipped my check back onto the gift table. Can we talk? she asked. I hesitated, then nodded. Sure. We sat at my kitchen table. She didn't touch her coffee. Her hands kept rubbing the edge of that folder like she was sanding down a truth she didn't want to deliver. I quit, she said finally. After the wedding? I blinked. Because of them? Her eyes flicked up. Because of your mother? For a moment, the room shrank around us. She treated the staff like furniture, Elena said quietly. And when I asked her to move your seat, she laughed, said, and I remember this word for word, put her near the kitchen. She needs humbling. The words dropped between us like cold silverware. I didn't move. I just stared at the steam curling from my cup. My fingers tightened around the handle until it stopped being warmth and started being pain. She slid a small recorder across the table. I kept the audio, not to hurt anyone, just for my sanity. I pressed play. My mother's voice filled the room, clear, crisp, and cruel. No, not with the guests. She's lucky to be invited. The sound of laughter followed, Amanda's, then clinking glasses, then silence. I hit pause. You ever hear something so familiar that it stops being shocking? That's what it felt like. Recognition, not revelation. Elena's eyes were wet. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have brought this, but I couldn't keep it anymore. It's okay, I said. You just confirmed what I already knew. She tried to smile, but it broke halfway. I have a mother like that too. That sentence hit harder than the recording. There was no pity in it, just understanding. For a few seconds, we sat there, two strangers orbiting the same wound. When she left, I stood at the window watching her car disappear down the street. The house fell quiet again, except for the faint sound of the recorder still humming before I turned it off. I picked up the ivory envelope still lying on the counter, the letter that said, "We need to talk." The handwriting looked smaller now, almost desperate. I walked to my desk, pulled open the drawer, and placed it inside. Then I closed it gently. The click was soft, final, like sealing away an entire version of myself that kept hoping she'd change. You ever close something and realize it's not just a drawer? It's a chapter. The sun shifted across the floor, cutting a sharp line between shadow and light. I stayed on the bright side, holding my empty cup. For the first time, I didn't need to replay the recording. The truth had already moved in, and it wasn't leaving. By Tuesday evening, the street outside my house looked washed out by that kind of light that turns everything into a half-memory. The air was still, the quiet kind that usually comes before confession. I had just finished watering the small plants on my porch when a gray sedan stopped by the curb. My mother stepped out first, carrying a bouquet of fake lilies, the same kind from Amanda's wedding. My father followed a few steps behind, hat in his hands, eyes fixed on the ground. She started up the walkway with that gentle pace she used when she wanted to look harmless. "Let's start over," she said softly. "We're still family." I met her eyes. "No, we can't start over. We never started right." Her face twitched, a perfect mask cracking by an inch. "Olivia, I know what you said at the wedding," I cut in. "About the kitchen, about me needing to be humbled." She froze, her tone tightening. "Who told you that?" "Doesn't matter. You said it." She gave a sharp breath and set the bouquet on the railing. "You're being dramatic. It was a joke. You always twist things." Behind her, my father stayed at the gate, silent, shoulders rounded like he wanted to disappear. "Come inside," I said. "Both of you." She hesitated but stepped in. Her eyes moved around the room, over the shelves, the clean counters, the quiet proof that I'd built a life without them. "You've done well," she said at last, "for someone who cut everyone off." That's what healing looks like, I said. She sat at the table without asking. Her gaze slid to the fridge. I knew she'd see it, the forged receipt pinned under a magnet, her daughter's crime framed in plain sight. You kept that? She asked. I keep evidence. The air between us went heavy. My father still hadn't crossed the threshold. She leaned forward, voice low but sharp. You've made your point, but forgiveness goes both ways. I forgave you for embarrassing us. Maybe you can do the same. I almost laughed. Forgiveness isn't pretending nothing happened. It's choosing peace without rewriting the story. You're twisting things again, she hissed. Then let's stop twisting, I said. You wanted honesty? Here it is. I'm done being the daughter you can lie about. For a long moment, no one moved. The clock ticked. The cat jumped onto the counter, tail flicking through the silence. Finally, she stood and reached for the bouquet like she was saving it from contamination. You'll regret this, she said. Families fall apart when pride wins. Then maybe ours was already broken. She turned toward the door, heels clicking like punctuation marks on a very long sentence. My father finally lifted his head. He took a slow step forward, the hat trembling slightly in his grip. He stopped at the doorway and looked straight at me. His voice was low, almost trembling. You did the right thing, he said, softly. I've been wrong for a very long time. I froze. It wasn't an apology that fixed anything. It was a truth that finally existed. He didn't defend her. He didn't ask me to forgive him. He just said enough to end the lie he'd lived in. I nodded once. That was all I could manage. He gave a faint, broken smile and turned to leave. She said something to him under her breath. He didn't answer. When they reached the gate, she spun around for one last word, but couldn't find it. I stood still, hand on the doorframe, sunlight cutting a bright line between us like a border no one would cross again. You think walking away makes you strong? She asked. No, I said. It just makes me free. She scoffed, shook her head, and kept walking. Dad followed, still holding his hat like it was the last thing holding him together. I stayed in the doorway until their car turned the corner. The fake lilies sat forgotten on the porch. One stem had bent sideways, its plastic petal catching the light. I picked it up, twirled it once between my fingers, and dropped it in the trash. You ever notice how quiet a house sounds after someone leaves for good? It's not empty, it's honest. I closed the door slowly. Click. That sound was quieter than a scream, but it ended everything. The air on the other side of that door felt new, almost clean. I poured the last of my cold tea down the sink and just stood there, breathing in the silence like it was a language I finally understood. For the first time, I wasn't replaying old arguments or waiting for someone to say the right thing. The closure wasn't words. It was that click, that tiny sound that meant it was finally over. Maybe some endings don't explode. Maybe they just exhale. Outside, the car engine faded down the street. I didn't watch it go. I didn't need to. Because for once, the story wasn't about who left. It was about who stayed. And this time, that person was me. 6 months later, the house feels lived in. Not haunted, not empty, just mine. The mornings start quietly. I still wake up early, but it's not from anxiety anymore. The cat usually beats the alarm, pawing at my arm until I open the curtains. Sunlight slips across the floor like forgiveness. I make coffee, feed the cat, and step into the small garden I planted in the spring. The basil grew faster than I expected. The lavender took its time. I like that. It reminds me that healing works the same way. Some things come back fast, others bloom when they're ready. I teach an art class now at the community center downtown. 10 kids, between 6 and 9, all loud, messy, and full of opinions about color. They argue about which shade of blue is happier. They paint trees with pink leaves. None of them care about being perfect. When class ends, they leave streaks of paint on the tables, and I leave them there. There's something beautiful about proof that someone tried. Sometimes parents linger after class. They tell me their kids are calmer now, more confident. I nod, smile, and pack up my brushes. They don't know that I'm learning just as much from their children as they are from me. Kids don't hoard resentment. They just feel, react, and move on. I used to think forgiveness was complicated. Turns out, it's just honesty without fear. On weekends, I walk to the local farmer's market. The lady at the flower stall saves the wilted daisies for me because she knows I'll try to revive them. "You always pick the sad ones," she jokes. Maybe she's right. But sometimes the sad ones bloom again if you give them a second chance. I don't talk to my family anymore. There's no bitterness, just distance, like a door that stays closed because both sides finally accepted it shouldn't open. Every now and then, Dad sends a short text. "Hope you're doing okay." No punctuation, no signature. I don't always reply, but I save everyone. They're small, clumsy bridges, and maybe that's all they need to be. The world has gotten smaller in a good way. My life fits inside one neighborhood, one classroom, one garden. And for the first time, that feels enough. This afternoon, the air smells like rain, even though the sky's clear. I decide to clean the closet and find an old box I haven't opened since moving here. The cardboard is soft at the edges, taped once, then again. The label just says family photos. I carry it to the kitchen table and open it. Inside, layers of faces frozen in perfect lighting. My parents, younger. Amanda in her graduation gown. Me, a gap-toothed kid in the middle, holding everyone together without knowing it. I start sorting them into piles. Laughter from one decade, silence from another. Some photos make me laugh. The way Mom's hair caught the wind in every picture. The way Amanda always tilted her chin like she knew she was the favorite. And then there's Dad, always at the edge of the frame, watching instead of posing. The photos smell faintly of dust and salt. I take that as proof they've survived, even if we didn't. You ever notice how old pictures lie a little? Everyone smiles, everyone looks close, but if you listen carefully, you can hear what wasn't said. I put most of them back in the box. It's not bitterness, it's boundaries. You can remember something without living inside it. At the bottom, half hidden under a bent Christmas card, there's one I haven't seen in years. It's me and Dad on the beach. I'm 5, holding a seashell to my ear. He's crouched beside me, sunburned, smiling like the world was simple. The tide behind us glows gold. I run my thumb over the edge. It's worn, soft. That version of us never learned about silence or sides. It just existed, and maybe that's why I can look at it without pain. I set the photo aside, separate from the rest. The others go back in the box. I fold the flaps down and slide it under the table. But this one stays. It sits beside my mug of cold coffee, beside the lavender I cut this morning. The colors in it are fading, but the feeling isn't. For a long time, I just sit there, listening to the quiet hum of the house. There's no anger left, just space. You don't always need to forgive people out loud. Sometimes peace is simply refusing to rehearse what hurt you. I glance toward the door, the same one that clicked shut half a year ago, the same one that marked the start of freedom I didn't know how to name. Back then, I thought walking away meant losing everything. Now I know it meant keeping what mattered. I pick up the photo again, smiling without realizing it. Some families are built, I whisper, not born. The cat stretches across the table, knocking over my pen. I laugh, because even that feels like life happening. Messy, unplanned, but mine. Outside, the sky softens to pink. Somewhere in the neighborhood, a kid laughs, a door closes, a car engine hums to life. And for the first time, all those sounds feel like part of my story, not reminders of what I've left behind. Sometimes the hardest door to close is the one you were born behind. But once you do, you finally have room to build another one and decide who gets to walk through it.